My special guest today is a musician, singer, songwriter who in recent years has performed all over as an outstanding John Lennon Tribute act. It's my pleasure to welcome to the show Mr. Paul McDonough. How you doing, my friend?
Hiya, Joe. How you doing?
It's been a
A
while,
warm
mate.
welcome from your hometown of Liverpool.
My hometown. I was there in 2019. Yeah,
Right,
I hadn't
yeah.
been
Well,
home in 11 years and I had a fantastic time. It was pre-COVID. It was Christmas and it was great to see all the family again, you know.
it was bouncing that year as well. I think it was on the rise. Obviously, everything through COVID's put everything on the break. But, it's different, isn't it? I mean, you haven't been there for 11 years. It's gone up, hasn't it? It's like very nice. And
I mean, I love
the
where I'm from, Paul, you know, where we're from. And
yeah,
yeah, I've been 11 years, but I tell you what, the town was bouncing. I had a fantastic time. Seen so
yeah,
many
it's
old
beautiful.
friends, so many new pubs, new bars all over the town. A lot of new Irish pubs I noticed when I was in town.
Well, absolutely. The thing is that, even though I've kind of been based there, I was away for 5 years too, until 2019, late 2019, really, early 2020. So for me, it was a revelation to see how much it's boomed as well, really, as it much probably was for you, more so for you, but it really has.
Paul, you started out in music as a teenager. Tell us about your
Yeah.
early performing days.
Well, we were known as the band that never woke up because we were so young. I was the only driver old enough to drive, and they absolutely worked us into the ground. We were doing 9 shows a week, and
Wow.
to double in the weekends, and none of us had a watch even. And so I do remember one time we all woke up. We were in the Lake District because it was getting towards winter, so it was fresh. And thinking, oh, we finally woken up early, and it wasn't. It was just cold. It was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Nobody had a watch.
Did you start out in Liverpool?
Actually, I did probably one or two in Crawford and a couple of social clubs.
Mm.
Even St. Alphonsus, where we're just up the road from where you're from.
Well, my dad was the steward there.
Of
My dad
course
was
he
the
was.
steward
Well,
there.
did you know my grandfather was John Kerrigan? Do you remember him? Older John Kerrigan. He was there as well. He's part of the background team and all that stuff. John Kerrigan.
Was he related to
But
Peter and Dennis?
no, no.
No.
Everyone used to think that he worked with Peter on the docks. He was always called Mr. Kerrigan. No one ever called him Johnny unless they were on the same level. Do you know what I mean? I went to art college, and after I finished art college, I ended up working in a drawing office. In those days, we used to actually draw with Indian ink, and they were the masters that used to make. And then this opportunity came up to tour the northeast and well, mostly the north of England. Just at the tail end of that, when there were shows every single night of the week, so you go away for 6 weeks at a time and really work. You really did. But we ended up getting this old tatty van that my uncle put a sewing machine engine in, and we get when we're going uphill, we couldn't overtake anybody because we had to get all the guys in. And all the lorry drivers used to laugh at us. We're like, come on, come on. So anyway, that you can imagine what happened to that after a while. It just completely exploded. I'll tell you a funny story. One time we were in Morecambe Central Pier. Do you ever remember that? That was a big venue. That was big ballroom venue. We just about limped there in the van. And it was a time, it was only petrol, diesel. And there was an RAC guy come out and he said, oh my God, if I'd known it was this, I'd have stayed in bed to turn it over. And it was like, "Arr!" And he said, diesel, is it? It wasn't.
But you were doing like
Yeah.
original
So,
stuff too.
yeah, that's right. I was doing a little bit around that, always writing my own stuff. And this is why I took this again to make money, to allow me to indulge that a little. And then from that point onwards, I really was very young. We did a band called Precinct 22, which almost made it very big, and we had a guy playing that kind of new synth thing that was around at the time. We were still playing guitars and quite melodic, but poppy, pop songs. And we came very close with that. That was great. First song published when I was about 20, 21. And again, when I was about 24, with chapel music. So I was always doing stuff and putting my own record out and things like that. When it was a big deal,
Yeah, I know it's
everybody
true.
puts them out now.
I remember you were in a band called Brazil.
That's right. Well, that was another band it was me, a duo, a trio, and then a full band. There was like, 10 Irish bars, if you remember them all. And I had residencies in all of them, as well as other little things. But that enabled me to, kind of fund my own stuff, if you like. And it lasted for ages. And then I was working on a big project with a girl on TV, famous over here, in a retro program called Heartbeat. I was doing some songs with her, and the guy who had just had a number one producer with Take That. And anyway, it fell apart.
Was that Trisha Penrose?
Yeah, Trisha
Penrose. I remember that, yeah.
It's great. She got a great voice, and everything was going well. A lot of money on the table, and anyway, it went a bit fruity and didn't happen. And my cousin, who was playing Paul McCartney in the Cavern Beatles, was always asking me to do it, but I was doing original stuff. And anyway, I thought, I'm going to do it, and I did it, and I never looked back, really.
So this is when you started doing the John Lennon tribute
stuff.
Yeah.
Again, it was very much with the idea, well, I'm going to earn it. It's a better quality of work and better quality places, fly out all over the world, really, and vastly more money than battering around the Brazil bars that I was doing, because I was running it all as well. So I'd turn up with the PA. You've been there. I know you've done this.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have all the PA. Everybody else would be getting the same money, but you'd have all the worry and the stress of it. And you wouldn't get any more pay for it. So I just walked into a unit that was already working and, doing quite successfully. So, within a couple of months, I flew first class to Australia.
Wow.
So it was quite a difference, So, yeah, it was great.
It was the Cavern then that you started doing the Lennon stuff?
Not in the Cavern, no. Although I played the Cavern, we headlined when it was still a big deal to do that. The Cavern, hadn't long. It was mid-90s, so it hadn't been open that long. Then, they used to have the best perceived Beatle band in the world there. It was headline, and that was us. And we headlined it. I didn't know you could sweat so much without dying. And it was just ridiculous. There's no AC in it until Paul McCartney played there. He insisted on it. No dressing room either until he got them built. It was the Cavern. It was just called Cavern, actually. And we played probably top-end corporate all around the world. Every hotel, big hotel, all around the world, and private parties and stuff. And it was fun. It was good, brand new, because everyone looked like they should, and it was a really good band. And it was great until I got headhunted then by the Backbeat Beatles.
Well, there's a lot of work goes into that. I mean, to be a successful tribute act, you've got to have the looks, the mannerisms, and obviously the sound.
Absolutely. The sound's one of the main things. I think the problem is with it, of course, is that once people do realise it's a way to elevate your pay and elevate your quality of gig, I think probably because, you were still here then, Stars in Your Eyes started, and lots of people started to swamp the market. Yeah. And, they wouldn't pay the same attention to detail, but they undercut everybody and stuff, which I don't blame them doing. But we were lucky enough to sort of rise above that a little, and then move into theatres, I guess, was the other thing that changed everything. So we did top end sort of corporate all around the world, private parties, celebrity weddings and things like that. And then, the theatre run started to become a big thing then.
You went into the cruise ships too?
Yeah, well, that started with Backbeat. We've always resisted them because one of the guys used to get seasick. He would never entertain it, it turned out. And then later on, in probably 2007, we got one. And because when you go on them, as you know, you're a cruise director yourself, they don't move. I think people were always assuming they're going to be like the Birkenhead Ferry, where you bounce all over the place, and you just don't. It's just a floating hotel, isn't it?
It is.
Really. And we loved it. We were offered about 25 gigs the whole of the next year, 17, 20, for a number of years. And they became the corporate market in many ways, because what happened after 9/11, most of the clients that we used to play for in London particularly, and even around the world, were actually in American finance, be it banking or, the insurances or whatever. So obviously when the Americans who loved the Beatles used to come over to London, they'd often always put a Beatles show on for them. But after 9/11, the market just stopped. And it was just coming back again in 2005 when those bombs on the underground hit. And that just killed the corporate market, really. So our cruise thing was really looking for another avenue of earning high quality, decent money at a high level of performance, really. And so they became our corporate, if you like.
Yeah. What cruise lines did you work on?
Every one, actually. I can't think of one I didn't. more or less. Might want one or two I didn't, but all of them. And we centered mostly on Royal Caribbean. That was the ones we did most
That's
of
the
our.
big one. That's the huge one.
Yeah, that's what we played. We were kind of exclusive to them for a while. But then when I left Backbeat and I still carried on doing cruises, I played on every line from P&O to NCL to, all of them. I can't, Holland America, everything. Anything you can think of, I played on.
A friend of mine went to work on NCL when I was still on the ships in Fort Lauderdale, and he said, "Do you want to move on to this ship? It's a bigger ship, and it's more money and stuff." And I was quite comfortable, to be honest with you. And then he said, "But you're only allowed 2 drinks in the crew bar total, and there's cameras." And I said, "Nah, that's not for me."
They're very much stricter. Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, but we'd be singing around the piano until 3 or 4 in the morning with all the guests, and they'd love it. You couldn't do that on NCL. You have curfew at 2 o'clock. You can't mix with the passengers. It's very much hands off, and even the crew bar closes early as well.
Yeah, I mean, the first one I did was in the Mediterranean. It was at a ship called the Sea Wing, 2001. And we mingle with the guests a lot. But the cruise director, who's actually been on the show, Paul Beck, Paul's a TV presenter now in England.
Is he?
Yeah, he'd come up with this idea of, say there was like a load of people on, guests from Manchester come and meet the singer out the show tonight, or guests from Liverpool, guests from Newcastle. City Chums. It was called City Chums.
Chums.
Yeah. So the very first time he did it, he said to me, "You're quite sociable, Joe. Will you do the first one?" He said, "And buy them a drink on the cruise director's tab, my tab." So the first time we tested it, it was Liverpool. So I goes up to the Crow's Nest, the nightclub. There was a load of Scousers there. It's supposed to last half an hour. I was there for 2 hours with them. Then I rushed to get ready for the show that night. And you know what it's like when you meet Scousers? Everybody knows somebody that you know back home, and then the conversation just, you know what I'm saying? It just got... So the cruise director says to me, he gets his bar tab. He said, "What's this?" I said, "You said buy them a drink." So that was the first one of City Chums. That's what it was called, yeah. Yeah. So I know what you mean about mingling with the passengers.
I bet it was hard to follow that.
That was I never did it again. What about you saying all over the world? I mean, you did Australia.
Yeah. China, Taipei as well, in Taiwan, Russia, obviously, Moscow, Middle East, North Africa, some of the Baltic states as well. Lots of stuff in Norway and Oslo and Kristiansand. And a few like that, Spain and etc., etc. They are Beatle fans, you find there's like a common thread through them. They are Beatle fans, and there is a kind of unity. I mean, there's some elements of a religion there as well. You can't. That's why you have to be very careful what you do, because they do know everything you do. They do know if you get it wrong. They really do.
The real Beatle fans, yeah, they know everything.
They absolutely do. Not everybody knows it to that degree, but we were talking about this once before, where the difficulty is sometimes we'd move from corporate into theatres. Now, when you play theatres, of course, people who buy tickets to theatres usually are Beatle fans, so they know the stuff. So you have a wider range of things. You can go a little bit more left field. However, when you play in a cruise ship, say, it's like playing somebody's wedding. Now, the people who book you might be mad Beatle fans and they love it, but not necessarily everybody they invite to the wedding is going to be as knowledgeable as them. So you have to cater for them. And it's the same on the ship. You have to stay kind of mainstream, really, to keep your audience. It's just, in many ways, going back on the cruise ships, although playing the theatre side of it was much the same, but the last runs I did, there was a themed cavern licensed to NCL, and that was our own room, as well as doing the opening show on the theatre every Sunday. And that was, in many ways, like going backwards for me to play in those bars, the Irish bars, and battling on there every night, because you get a different audience every night.
Yeah.
You really would. So it was, and as being a cruise director, it's not just for fun. Everybody comes and measures how many people go in that room, how much money they're spending in the room. So
everything's monitored. I remember
everything.
The comment cards, and they really study them comment cards. Yeah, the bosses.
Well, we were kept out of that for a while because they didn't know where to place us. We were headliners with our own theme room, you see. So they didn't know what to do with us, really, when it was brand new, the idea, because you never ever stayed on more than 2 weeks as a headliner. So I was on 9 months sometimes, and 5 months and 5 months and stuff. But once they allowed those comment cards to include us, we just filled literally from floor to ceiling. The dressing room was plastered with them.
Yeah.
And then we kept getting, became a little embarrassing to keep going up to the captain and, winning common card of the month again and again and again and again, And I know a lot of that's not just the Beatles as well as I hope I had some measure of my and the guys' input as personality to win them over, I became, we were talking about this one before, but I came kind of John Lennon, Johnny Mac, my dad. So I had to adapt, and I don't think if hadn't had the experience of playing like you and I have before we did this tribute thing in different bars and having to win people over, I was able to, in some way, refer back to that to win and work the audience. Do you know what I mean? As well as being, you can't just stand there singing and walk off. You have to engage, as you know.
Yeah, you do.
You've
so
got to mingle with
great. Them. And they love it. Their passengers love that.
Oh, they do, yeah.
When you
it makes their cruise.
Them. It does.
Makes their cruise. To come out and have a drink with them after and chat to them and be nice to them, it means everything to them. I used to have somebody used to come up and say, you probably heard this a million times before. And I used to say, but I haven't heard it from you, have I? And they love that. But it's true. Yeah. It's unique to you. I don't, that doesn't go past me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a unique experience to you. Even if I've heard it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether I've heard it or not.
Well, when you do your John Lennon acts, do you do it a specific period or do you go through the ages? When he changed images and he got
always through the ages. I mean, you have to. If it's a theatre show, you really don't have much of a choice. You just got to do the chronology, really.
Yeah, because where I'm in San Antonio, there's a band here, and they were here about 3 weeks ago. Now the theatres, thank God, are opening again because we've got some great theatres here. There's a band called 1964, and they're just early Beatles. They stay in that period, so I wasn't sure. Do you do the whole thing? You go right through it, yeah. You do the pepper.
Yeah, well, it's usually your remit. I mean, it's 2 halves, and you take it to midpoint. First half, and then from midpoint to the end in the second half. That's usually the way it's done. In a theatre on the ship, it's a condensed 50-minute version of that from beginning to end with the costume changing. And obviously some of the shows that you do that are corporate, they are just 1 hour and they just want early stuff because they want to rock, they want to dance.
The twist and shouts and the She Loves You.
Keep you rocking for them, stuff like that. But in the theatres, you're doing a show, so you have to do the range, I think. They expect that anyway.
Yeah, because that's a big thing, isn't it? I mean, it's a lot goes into that. Costume changes, the look again, obviously the sound changes. I mean,
everything. Well, you stand differently. They change the way they stand as they got older, subtly, and just their approach and stuff like that. It's slightly different. If you pay attention to it, it does make a difference. It's very subtle, but you do see it. They're very talented. Lots of people are doing it. They're very good, I must be honest. Because when I did it first, there were only like 2 or 3 bands that were the ones in the world really doing it, at the time, and they were the best. And luckily, I was in 2 of them. Do you know what I mean? So, I'm very lucky.
Do you know what? I was talking this morning to Tony Bolland.
Oh, wow. He's just had a book, hasn't he?
Well, the thing is, I was talking about his new book because he's done a piece on me in his new book. I'm honoured. But he was telling me that you are in his Beatles book, A Little Help from My Friends, covering the Beatles. There's a piece on you in the Beatles book.
Yeah.
Tony's worked really hard, I'm looking forward to seeing the new book. His Hesse's books are fantastic.
Yeah.
And he's also doing a thing where, you remember Dave McCluskey?
Yeah, I do.
You know Dave. Well, they wrote a book together called In the Mood for Murder. And they actually turned it into a movie. It's set in the 1940s. The big band era.
I thought that was about Hesse's. Because remember, you couldn't touch anything. Don't touch the drums. Don't touch the instruments.
Especially Jim Gretty. Yeah.
How are you going to try?
It's great that we all went through that period and knowing who Jim Gretty was.
Oh, yeah. The Beatles, that big chord, Till There Was You. And he goes... It's a big F sharp 9, I think it is. He taught that Beatles that chord.
Wow,
Jim Gretty.
He was a legend, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
Well, I'm going to get that book now as well because I want to see the piece on you and that. And I know it's an unusual book, that. But In the Mood for Murder, just getting to Tony a minute, that's actually going to become a movie. I've actually got some people lined up. You've got a George Harrison story for us.
Yeah, well, when I was doing all my own stuff and everything, you just throw the stuff out to wherever you can get it to, don't you?
Yeah.
And I thought, I wonder if the Beatles, in my naivety. And anyway, they came back with unsolicited material, was just, didn't even open it. as such. He didn't play it. Just get no, we just don't take unsolicited material. Not interested anyway. And I got a call about 2 or 3 weeks later from George Harrison's secretary. I thought it was a wind-up, to be honest, but anyway, she said, I really, really like your stuff. George doesn't want to get involved with anything at the moment. Research recently, but there was lawsuits all over the place for the Beatles. He just had enough signing things for people. Yeah. But he did allow her to help us do well. So under that umbrella, I got first decent accountant in music, but also first managers through them as well. And anyway, long story short, we were doing a Radio 1 interview and play. There's 2 of us by this time in Precinct 22. We just recorded in Chapel Music, which we were trying to do for a single we thought we were going to do. So the guy I was with was lovely, but he didn't get the gravity who George was. He just didn't get it. He wasn't necessarily a Beatle fan. He was just young, so he didn't know. And when we went back to the office, which I used to go to regularly in Chelsea, it's off Sloane Square it is, Cadogan Square, and she said, George is in, he wants to meet you. And I went, oh, great, that's great. And said, yeah, he looked up, and we were kind of in the basement part of it, and you could see where the window was just above it there, you could see the Porsche, which was one of his cars. She said, oh, great, okay, we'll sit on the settee. And how long is he going to be? She said, about 4 or 5 hours. I'm not waiting 4 or 5 hours. And she said, but it's George. I said, I don't care who it is. I'm not waiting 4 or 5 hours. And I was nervous, to be honest with you. The guy who was with her just banged on the window of the live Radio 1 news thinking it was funny. Anyway, I was just a kid, you know what I mean? I was nervous anyway. But George thought it was hilarious when he found out later. And he had more respect for me. I wasn't going to be a George. Yeah. She didn't want to be. I wanted to be, an equal human. But then he did make sure whatever we did after that, he guided and pushed around. I'm sad because I would have, now obviously because he's passed, but I've heard one of the guys who was in the office there who did make him listen to the stuff was Ray Cooper. He's a great percussionist. He worked in one of the offices then. I met him again. We were doing a tour and I was staying in between in London, and everybody goes to the Bar Italia, which is a little pizza place around the corner in Theatreland in Soho. And he was in there, and I said hello and thanked him for being so kind when I was so young and everything. And he was just sweet and lovely. But he had the piano that was on the roof of the sessions in his office, the Rhodes piano. Yeah. And apparently Let It Be was initially written on that, sketched out. And I said, can I play it? He said, yeah, come on. So I played Let It Be on me, which was a big buzz for me. That was in the office. That was the one that Billy Preston played.
I was just going to say that, yeah. Billy Preston was on the roof that last show, wasn't he?
That was it. That's the one he played, yeah.
We're going to come back and talk some more music, but I wanted to include your dad in today's segment. So let's talk about the late, great Liverpool comedian, Laughing Johnny Mac.
Yeah, he's great, my dad. I mean, what can you say about my dad? There's not enough you could start now. You'd never fill a book with him, would you? He was fantastic. Yeah. He was funnier off stage as well,
Well, I remember I was probably about 7, 8 years old when we lived in Highfield Gardens. I met your dad outside the pub. He'd been having a pint with my dad.
That's all right.
And I think he'd recently been on Opportunity Knocks.
Opportunity Knocks, won it.
Yeah, and he won it, right. I remember the glossy photo he signed to me as a kid.
My uncle still got that on the wall. I went to his house. He picked me up. I was came from a business meeting in Birmingham. He picked me up, and he took me back to his house, and he still got it on the notice board in his house. That very photograph signed by my dad, of course. Yeah.
What's your memories as a kid of your dad doing his act in the clubs and everything?
I remember one time we went with him to Stoke, and in those days, it was much more insular. If you went outside Liverpool as a Liverpool comedian, it was tougher because people didn't travel quite as much then, and stayed within their own community and stuff like that. So you didn't get the reception that was kind of general now. It doesn't really matter. But then it was tough going if you went out. So I remember him changing. He read the audience immediately and completely flipped to another act. Yeah. Another complete hour and a quarter I'd never heard, and brought the house down. I remember the ability to, he had real skill. One of the funny stories he tells me about that point, he went to Wigan, I think. And
we've all been there, haven't we? We've all played there.
He said, but I knew as soon as I walked in, the concert secretary just didn't like me, didn't like Liverpool people. He said, I knew. So you know from the old days, one of the big powerful things they could do was pay you off halfway, so you only get half your fee,
Yep.
and they all go back to the committee. I've paid them off, they've saved you whatever, and so my dad said I knew I was getting paid off. So anyway, he came in half time and he says, "Okay, Johnny, it doesn't look like it's happening. I'm paying you off." And my dad said, "Fine. Anyway, I've got another show in a nightclub, so that's fine. I can get there earlier." And he kind of he said, "And anyway, your mate's paid me." He said, "What mate paid you?" "Your mate paid me in full." And when he paid you in full, he shouldn't have paid you in full. He said, "Where is it? Give us the money back." And my dad said, "The check's in my back pocket. See if you can get it." And just stared at him, And the guy backed off. He didn't get it. You had to fight for it. That was a lovely story that he told me. And off he goes, yeah. Check's in my back pocket. See if you can get it. I mean, being out with him was just very, very, very funny. Man, he really was. A little thing, we walked into, do you remember the Atlantic pub?
Oh, yeah, I played the Atlantic, yeah.
Well, we walked in there, and honestly, we just got halfway, and a guy always knew him. My dad never remembered anybody, by the way, because everybody knew him. He's quite shy. And people didn't believe that because he could go on stage, but he was quite shy. So this guy says, "Oh, hiya, Johnny. Oh, hiya, Frank." And then for the next 10 minutes, we never got a word in. We couldn't move. And all he did was give my dad every terrible, unlucky story he'd ever had. And we couldn't speak. And then my dad eventually said, "Look, okay, Frank, look, fine. We've got to get a beer here." And he just, half a turn, he turned back to Frank and said, "Oh, by the way, Frank, are you still selling Lucky Charms down at the market?" Just killed him. It was a way of saying, God almighty, just killed us for 10 minutes for hard luck stories there. Yeah. But that little thing, another one was funny. My uncle was an ex-para. He had a voice of an angel. He should have made it as a country and western singer. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating, but he was as good as anybody. Steel erector he was. And we were all out one day. This is when I really realised why nobody let my dad go home. He was already in form, making everybody laugh and all the pub and stuff. There's a guy singing, playing and stuff. And Phil, a big, hard guy. And he's a big softy with dogs. And his partner had just said, I'd had a litter, the little tiny terrier had a litter. Huh. So his opening line was, "Oh, I just had to knock a drayman out." And we're like, "Oh, okay. So why is that?" He said, "Oh, the dog said the run to the litters, it's not very well. Called Winnie after my nan, by the way." And we're all, "Yeah, well, it's not very well. Not paid for it. It's in the vet. It's on a drip. I was already upset over the dog." So like that. He said, and I was driving, and he cut me up, and I thought, well, I'm not having that. And he went chased after, and he said a few things. So I went in front of him, and he said a few things again. So I stood on the step and went, boof. He said a few people screamed at the bus stop, but I explained, I'm upset about my dog, and this fella just cut me up. So it was the dog, right? That's all he was talking about, and everybody stifled me because he's hard, and he's passionately upset about it. So the guy singing says, "Oh, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. We've a great singer in. I've just noticed here. Put your hands together for Mr. Phil Kerrigan." And as he stood up like that, my dad said, "And don't sing old shit."
You're talking about that Atlantic pub. It's so sad that's gone now. So many memories of that place, the Atlantic.
It was a fantastic place, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I remember doing the Billy and Wally show a couple of times there.
The guys, the people who ran it, Pat and...
it was Johnny Caldwell.
Johnny Caldwell is a beautiful man. He really is, and very, very kind. He actually typed out an act my dad did as best as his memory that he used to do that, and never got it somewhere. I'll show you next time you're home. Yeah. One of us has got it, and he typed it all out. He loved my dad because my dad was genuinely, yes, what you saw is what you got. There's no sides to him. He was that really lovely, warm, kind person. He'd be a rascal as well, family-wise. You never saw him, But he was. It's illustrated story about that was we were on one of our only holidays, I think, to Lacca. It was in a caravan in the middle of a field, and we arrived there late, and it was dark pretty soon. So, the middle of the night, we thought there was an earthquake because it was just the caravan was getting properly rocked from side to side and pitched and everything. And it turns out they're full of horses who were scratching the backsides on each corner, just shaking us round. So So my dad anyway got him coming out with a broom like that, and the horse was up like this. It was like they killed him. It was funny. But he ended up doing a competition. Then he ended up getting up to sing. Then he did an act, and he won. At the end of the week, he won the competition. So we come back, and we've just got one scooter between me and John. You know, the brother John as well.
Yeah.
And I proper this little push scooter. You know, I found out many years later he actually won a real scooter. And just said, "Oh, that's not good to me. You can keep that." No thing of selling it or giving it to one of us or something. He just kept it and just he took the little scooter as a kind of payoff. He's very kind and sweet.
Yeah, great memories in your dad. But I wanted to mention your dad today in the segment.
It's my favourite one. He said, because they were quite poor. There's about 10 of them, 11 of them. And he said, "I never slept on my own till I got married."
Laughing Johnny Mac, legend. Your dad.
He was a legend. I miss him very much. Gone
Sure
16 years now.
Yeah, God bless, mate. Yeah, yeah. Paul, you got a new movie project.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's I don't think I can tell you yet. I mean, I think I can tell you as soon as I know it. It's going into production anyway. It's Beatle related.
Okay.
It's for general release. I don't know if it's got American. I know it's got lots of territories already sold to, Europe and Japan and whatever. And I'm pretty sure it'll get America eventually because it's just got to do America. But that country, as you know, USA is so huge. It might even be state for state for all I know. I don't know. But hopefully it looks like it's going to be great anyway. It goes into proper production. It's been doing pre-production. It goes into proper production of films in Liverpool in October, I believe. I'll keep you posted next time I'm on. I might give some more info for that one and be able to tell you what it is.
What's your role in it? Are you actually cast in it or are you behind the scenes?
No, because the Beatles had to be quite, kind of very, very young, and this is right at the beginning, so they've got kids doing that, really.
Yeah.
Although I did sing, so I hope they used my voice. I was asked to sing when I went down. I wasn't expecting that, so that was good. But obviously my name will be on the credits as the musical something or other. I don't know what it'll be called yet. And certainly the cast, teaching them how to be John, really, and how to be Beatles. Helping them. They've got their own. They have to do it themselves, but just hopefully helping. I don't know what it'll be called. Beatle helper.
Beatle helper. A little help from Paul Mac.
Yeah, hope so.
When you started doing the Lennon thing, how long did it take you to perfect that?
Well, I don't think I ever have. I think I still keep trying. I try to. I was very lucky that he was my idol in the Beatles anyway. I loved the Beatles at full stop. I read everything about them because it was such a phenomenon. I loved all the music, still do. So I'd read everything that was possible to read about them, know about them, like an encyclopedic knowledge of them. And I just knew the man, you know what I mean? I knew him. He was my favourite, always was. And I just picture him in my head when I'm doing it and try and transport that into what I can push out, kind of be him. And no one's thrown anything at me yet, so I must be doing okay.
Yeah, because you must have to live the part.
You do, and I think the thing is, one of the liberating things is, because I'm different on stage than him, and now because of doing it, I'm better on stage than I was in terms of confidence, because what you realise, it is all an illusion in many ways. And you realise, that character could get away with so much by being that character. You realise what you can actually get away with,
Yeah.
Tell people to shut up or do whatever, you wouldn't dare do it if it was you. But because of the thing about the Beatles is they're absolutely adored, even to this day, and perceived as cheeky, so you get away with it. And I learned that one very quickly. It's about being confident in the role, really, and comfortable in it, and hopefully trying to do justice. And you've got a duty to do that, I think, because of the iconic status they have. I think you've got to be as good as possibly you can be, really.
Yeah. Who's your musical influences growing up?
Him, Bowie. I've got a really wide range of stuff. And I had older friends, so John and I and my brother used to always go to all the older concerts like Zeppelin and Yes, even. You remember them? Focus and Bowie. I saw Bowie as a kid. I was only very, very young, but they were all older teenagers from the, where I told you where I used to live, just down the road where you used to live on the corner there.
Boundary Street.
They were all older. Yeah, Boundary Street,
Yeah.
Commercial Road was like They're gone now, those flats, but I used to live there, and we used to go to all these concerts with them, and the Eagles, Neil Young, all of these people I used to go to, then 10cc, and, older and older and older and older, loads of concerts. So they're all influences to me. I just like really melodic music. Bowie's the second, probably biggest one after the Beatles, I'd say. And later on, I like Crowded House as well. Remember them? They had
I love Crowded House, Neil Finn. There's definitely Beatlisms in their music, for sure.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Just the way they do the harmonies, block harmonies.
I mean, there's a track called "You're Not the Girl You Think You Are." That is so Lennon.
Oh, it is, yeah.
That song.
You're really close tonight. That one
Yeah,
as well. That's
that
Lennon.
well.
Yeah, so them, and I can't think of anyone just at the top of my head, but I mean, Elbow, and even bits of Oasis, bits of, all that sort of era. And I like Billie Eilish. I love the Bond theme. The latest Bond theme is beautiful. I think she sings it great.
Do you have plans now? The gigs are slowly coming back. I know we've all been through the pandemic.
I kind of don't want to blight it because everything is so uncertain still. But I'm supposed to be doing a 3-month tour in the Imagine show of Lennon songbook in Holland. Like just a ridiculous amount of dates in a short time. There's about 50 dates, I think, in 10 weeks. So I'll be much thinner if I'm alive next time I see you, if it comes off,
That's what you got planned?
The 1st of October, supposed to go. We do 2 weeks rehearsals over there because you have to quarantine as well. So we rehearse while we're quarantined. So, and then the tour starts, and you stay there, and then because it's only tiny, so you can just do one nighters and zip there, zip back. Say somewhere central. I'm not quite sure where we're going to be yet. Probably in the woods. Imagine, obviously, it's because of the name. It's 50 years, I think, this year that it was released. And
71. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's 50 years it was released. It's called Imagine. So basically, from Beatles to the end, really, it's a chronology from that point, from early Beatley things through to middle of that, and then on to his solo stuff.
But in recent years, you've done the Lennon thing. Didn't actually have a band. You'd recruit.
Yeah. Well, what happened was
the rest of the members,
like a cast, really. Yeah. But after having been in 2 bands for so long, and then left, and I was in another one for kind of. Not the same way, but it was still a band called Beatlemania in that way. When I left and went freelance in 2012, I just worked for everything and everybody. That's when I did more and more cruise work as well. And then the Cavern, who I hadn't played in since I did the headlining show with Cavern Beatles, they've got a house band called the Cavern Club Beatles, and 2 of their main guys had gone in to do something else, so they asked me would I fancy it, and I did. So I was playing in the cabin in the back room. Once and twice every week, to a paid audience, and that was great. They didn't want me to leave when I knew the guys would come back eventually, but they didn't want me to leave, so they gave me some solo stuff in there, and it was I found it tougher, to be honest with you. It was hard to monitor in there on your own, I think. But also I think that one of the things is everybody assumes that everybody who comes into the cabin are all massive Beatle fans. Now the ones where I played in the back room were because they bought tickets to see what they knew they were going to see. But the front room, because it's a pub club, so you get a mixed audience all the time. Some people come in and just delighted that it's for guys doing Lennon, that's great. And other people are just delighted to look at it like a museum. They might be just tourists and looking around, seeing, and you can't win that audience over because they're not familiar with what you're doing. So you could never get a toehold properly. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying there, because do you know what? I quit the cruise ships towards the end of 2005. Then I came to Texas, but I was home for a while before I came out here. 2005, end of October, November, I think it was. I had a gig on the Cavern. That was the last time I played the Cavern. I first played it when I was 18, but the last time I played was 2005, and it was on a Boxing Day, and it was just acoustic. And I followed I think it was Jay from the Cavern Beatles. I think he was on before me doing a solo spot. Is it Jay?
Yeah, Jay, he's still there actually, but he's not. He's not in the Cabin. He's not in the Cabin Beatles. Yeah, he's just a cabin player now. I think he's played different bands. I think he's done different, depth things. I don't know if he's in a fixed band. I don't know, but
he was on before me. Then I followed him like early evening, and it was Boxing Day, so town was bouncing. Christmas time in Liverpool. So I know what you mean. I had to really think on my feet and do so much.
Oh, it's hard work. I found it hard work. But if you're doing it 3-4 times a week, it's a killer. It can lift you up, lift you down. But don't forget, by this point, I've been used to going down fairly well. in doing what I did, and I used to do the Lennon. I didn't do it as me. I did it as Lennon because I thought you should.
Yeah.
And like you, so just acoustic. There's no band, just me.
No back doors.
No, and
Yeah, you're on your
and then
own.
that. Well, the guy I used to work with on the cruises, the agent came in and asked me to do the casting thing, to manage it, and to put the thing together because it was completely. There's nothing. They just had the room. They didn't know how they were going to do it, and the remit was to play beginning, middle, and later. So, and I know from doing it, unless you're playing a theatre people know and buy tickets, Pepper is a hard go if you don't know it. It's not a dancey thing. It basically it's an album made so you can trip to, you can blow your read to and listen to it. That's what it's for, and it's very much of its time. So it was a hard thing. And what I did, eventually, I tried it first, but I knew it wouldn't work because it's just too slow, really. I split that into a split show. So I did the beginning as if it was Shea Stadium. Then I'd do Hide Your Love Away. They'd go off, get changed, and Paul would come back and do Yesterday. And then as Pepper, and then we'd all come back and do a couple of Pepper songs, do I Am the Walrus, and then do some early stuff, job done. And that did it. We filled the remit, but we actually, went down well, kept the thing bouncing.
Yeah.
And they were the three shows we used to do. So apparently, you're supposed to use 6 shows, supposedly. You used to do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 again. It changed for me doing longer shows for less nights, if you know what I mean. It was better.
Yeah.
So I had to cast people. It was very, very difficult because, I'd been in bands that all people did what they're supposed to do, and even if they didn't quite look like them, they knew the stuff. And I'd now mix them with people who, like I said, had realised if you put a wig on, you get 4 times more money than you would do if you didn't put them on. So you get some people who's like I wouldn't even dare come to the ship of us anyway, whatever. But nice people, they're all lovely people. But the point I'm making is the standard was like that.
Yeah.
So like I think we mentioned earlier on, I ended up having to be like my dad some nights, not telling jokes as such, but being funny and being bigger and filling the gaps to take away any weaknesses, say. So I worked like a dog, if I'm honest with you. It was back to the old days of doing it. Instead of just being like John in character, I had to be John in character but funny and mix them with the audience and stuff like that. So it was another learning curve, actually. It was hard work, though.
Yeah, I can imagine. What about the cruise ships? Do you think you go back to the ships?
Well, I've been asked to, but I think probably headlining if I go back.
Right.
I don't see me doing the 5 and 9 months again on them. I think I'll go back to the way it used to be, in that you go on headline, never fall out with anybody because you're not on long enough. And
as we used to call them, fly-ins. We call them fly-ins. Yeah.
Just do the fly-ins and then or fly-outs, and then off you go. We'll see where this tour builds. Maybe try and bring it over to the States as well. And I'm writing a book as well.
Oh, you are?
I've got one chapter written, about me being John, and when that's done, we'll see what I do with that. Maybe tour with the kind of question and answers, do stuff. I don't know. We'll do something with it.
Good.
Yeah, so.
Paul, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us today, taking your time, and it's been great to catch up.
Likewise, it's been lovely to see. It's been a long time.
It's been a long, long time, mate. Yeah. Best of luck with everything, especially the Holland tour.
Thank you.
And it's been great. Paul McDonough, everybody. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
All the very best, mate.
You
See
too.
you later.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you.
Adios.